periods regular. I had had a coil for many years, was really happy with it. The copper coil, regular as clockwork every month, and then I just started to constantly bleed. And I mean, just constantly bleed. There was no gap in it at all. It was quite heavy. It started to become, no, I don't mean to be graphic, but like quite clotty. And it was just really uncomfortable. It was making, you know, my everyday life like starting to be a bit unbearable. I was, you know, leaking through clothing. That was with my coil in at the time, yeah. So obviously I was thinking, oh God, you know, what's going on here? And that was my first ever symptom. So I went to the GP and they advised that I change the coil and I have a merino one instead, and that should help to regulate my periods again. So I took their advice and I did that. But I just found the merino coil didn't suit me. I just felt really more PMS-y and had symptoms more a bit teary, you know, agitated while I had that in. And it was the only thing I could associate it with at that time, because, you know, I'd not had any sort of diagnosis or anything then. So I had that removed and just went on my way with nothing. I had no contraception for a while. And then after that I started to get night sweats. That was one of my second symptoms that came. I'd just wake up absolutely drenched. I first started, well, the first time I went to the doctor I was 39, so I'd been having symptoms for a while then. Probably about 6 months before I went to get some advice. I mean, I'm like 6 years later now and still, you know, going through all of this, and finally got a diagnosis of Peri Menopause. But it did take quite a long time to get that. I was toing and froing from the doctor all the time. I didn't understand what was going on, you know. I still had these really heavy periods that didn't seem to stop. I felt tired all the time, but then I associated that with the blood loss, that, you know, because I was quite heavy, and the sweating at night. Like I would wake up, and I think anyone who's had night sweats can relate to this. I used to think, have I wet myself? You know, I would wake up absolutely soaking wet through. I'd have to get up, have a shower, change, and that was like 3 times a night sometimes. I started to have flushes and get extremely hot. But obviously when I'd sweat and then wake up in the night, I'd be freezing cold. So they were my main symptoms: the irregular heavy periods, well, constant period, not irregular, constant to start with, the night sweats, started to get more emotional and agitated quite a lot, like say like PMS, but constant PMS. There didn't seem to be any break. They didn't really say anything, to be honest, at the time. They were quite dismissive. It was really short and sweet. It was sort of, oh well, you know, try the merino coil and maybe that'll work. So obviously I took their advice, off I went, came back, had it removed, and just said, you know, I'll just carry on with nothing. I thought having no hormones in me might be what's best for me. So I carried on like that for quite a while. They never mentioned perimenopause to me. What happened was I just felt absolutely rubbish. I got really bad fatigue as well, which is still one of my main symptoms. And I just couldn't understand what was happening to me. I'd come home from work, and I work full time, I've got children. I'd come home from work, and before I'd even started dinner, I'd fall asleep on the sofa. I'd spend weekends asleep. I'd just sleep constantly. I could not keep my eyes open. I'd sleep through the night and then wake up, and it'd be like I'd never even had a wink of sleep. I'd be exhausted. I'd wake up thinking, oh, you know, if everyone does it, you just go back to sleep. Yeah, it was really bad in the beginning, and that it sort of started to like cripple me, and that's when I was really starting to panic, and I noticed that I'm not functioning. I wasn't functioning as a mother. I wasn't able to, you know, I'd come home, my routine was all over. I couldn't cook when I came home from work like I used to. I used to go to the gym, I'd stop doing that. You know, at weekends I would be just sleeping as well. Zero energy. Yeah, and I just felt like it just really debilitated me. Yeah. At that time, it did, yeah. No, okay. So they didn't. So I started to do my own research through Google, and that's where I didn't come across perimenopause. I came across menopause, and as I was reading the symptoms, I thought, oh my God, this is me, like this is me. But I was quite, you know, young for my age to be going through anything like that. So I was to and fro back to the doctors all the time, and I mentioned it, and they dismissed that instantly because I was getting quite teary and emotional as well, out of the blue. Obviously, and I think this is across, you know, the board for a lot of women, if they turn up to the doctor and said this, it's automatically you're depressed. You know, my life was great, my partner's great, my kids great, I like my job. At the time that I was in, you know, my life, nothing had changed, I had no major changes, just me and my health and physically what I was going through. Yeah, so it was all taking antidepressant, and I was like, well, I don't actually think I'm depressed. But they just sort of sold it to me and said it'll help with my night sweats, apparently. So I thought, well, and I was suffering, so I was like, okay then. So I started on 20 milligram of fluoxetine, and over the years, that they've increased my dosage of that, because I've been so up and down, but it's had no effect on my mood at all, and I've still, you know, been consistent in going up and down over all these years. So I've actually gone back and argued the fact that, well, I don't think actually that that's what I need, because if it was working, I would clearly feel better, and I didn't feel any better. If anything, I started to feel progressively worse over the last year than I ever had. So yeah, going back, so I was to and throwing, you know, menopause at them. Then they explained it's perimenopause, and I was far too young to be going through anything like that. But and that sort of sent me on my way. So I just kept going back. I just thought, I've got nothing to lose, and I'm just going to irritate them until they listen to me, because I knew there was something wrong with me, and but I didn't know what it was, because it's emotional, it's physical. I get really bad acute joint pain, like really bad. Yeah, sometimes I've actually woken up and think, like, have I got a sprain or an injury somewhere, because it's absolutely killing me, honestly. I've always suffered with quite bad backache, but it's got progressively worse going through this stage in peri, definitely. And migraines, I've never suffered with them. I got loads of migraines. Insomnia, I'd go through stages of, you know, probably a month or two of insomnia, and then it just switched like that, and I'd have fatigue, and I'd just sleep constantly, then I'd be awake constantly, then I'd just sleep constantly, then I'd be, and still, you know, trying to function, trying to be a mum, trying to be a partner, trying to go to work full time. Yeah, and then I think the thing with it as well is, no one prepared me for it. No, like, I've never had this conversation with my mum. You know, like when you reach puberty and girls go through periods, you're all prepared, aren't you? And everybody, you know, school informs you about it, your parents tell you about it, but like, it just hit me like a bolt out of the blue. I honestly didn't know what was happening to me. So eventually they started to have blood tests, started to have regular blood tests. But because they didn't catch the hormones, I had about 5 before I actually got my diagnosis. Yeah, they couldn't quite catch the hormones, because apparently my doctor said they fluctuate so quickly. So I was literally advised to then, if I started a period, to go straight down to the doctors and then have my blood tests. I was having them at all different stages, and like times through the day. And like literally on the 6th one, they caught something, and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, there's nothing, you've literally got hardly anything at the moment, and acknowledged that I was suffering. So then they wrote to a consultant at the hospital, at the local hospital, because they didn't want to administer any HRT to me because of my age, because I was still quite young at that time. I think I must have only been about 41 by then. They came back and said that I could trial something. So they put me on, I think it was a less so low to start with. I think that's an estrogen, just estrogen based, but I didn't quite like that. It didn't make me feel any better at all. That was a tablet.
Right.
I've had quite a lot on and off. So I've had the tablet, I didn't like that. I've had patches as well, which I felt I was a lot better on. But the patches, I had to alternate them. I had to take 2 weeks of estrogen, then I swap and I take 2 weeks worth of progesterone as well. And I feel that I'm better. But it's also about getting the dosage of both of them right as well, for me personally, because you know, I think everyone's different, aren't they? In this situation, every single person. I tried the HRT, sort of didn't like that, but then on reflection, I can remember when I was a teen and I started to take the contraceptive pill, and I never actually found one that suited me, that I felt comfortable. I always felt like I was super emotional, or like really crampy, or had physical symptoms. So I never found a contraceptive, which is why I ended up on the copper coil. I just was desperate. I was literally desperate to sleep and just to function. Like I couldn't do anything. And it's like my memory just went. Like it just went overnight. Yeah, honestly, I just wrote. Yes, my family. The amount of times I lose my keys and my mobile phone, it's a daily occurrence. I'm like, where's my phone? Where's it? You know, still now, but yeah, it was terrible. And I just didn't recognise myself. Yeah. I just really doubted myself. I saw my confidence. Then I started to like get anxiety, suffer with anxiety. There'd be times where I could make plans to go out, you know, girls' night, or we had an event, a birthday celebration with my partner that we were going to, and I wouldn't be able to go. Yeah. I'd be crippled with anxiety and like self-doubt, and I just feel horrendous. And I knew the minute I would probably have a glass of wine, I'd start blurting. I thought, nobody wants that, nobody wants to see that, do they? But it did, it sort of made me a recluse for a while. Yeah. Thankfully not. That's good. I mean, there have been times, don't go wrong. Yeah, I think I've tested him, pushed him. Yeah, but it is amazing. I'm so lucky. I am so lucky. I am honestly so lucky. Yeah. Thankfully, he can remember the period before Peri Menopause, so it's like, I know it's not you. And it's what, you know, it's what you're going through. But I'm even if you asked him, he didn't even recognise me sometimes. I didn't recognise myself. Yeah. Like my kids were so worried about me as well. So I tried the HRT with the doctor and didn't think it suited me. Okay. So I pushed the doctor to refer me to a consultant at the local hospital. I mean, that's probably like 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years in now, going to and from the doctor to try different things. So they agreed, and they agreed to see me. Got my first appointment, but COVID hit, so it was a telephone conversation. It was very short and sweet. You know, I'd prepared this massive, huge spiel of all my symptoms. I thought, I've got to explain to this lady like how I feel. Someone's got to help me. So I'd got it all prepared, and I was probably literally on the phone for 4 minutes. But she just asked me, what's your symptoms? I said, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, you're perimenopausal. And she advised me to go back on the Merino coil because I needed the progesterone that provided, and then have an estrogen tablet to balance that out. And she said beforehand they were just offering me the estrogen. The GP was obviously, they're not trained, are they, in hormones? It's not their speciality or anything. So they were just offering me the one where I should have had the two to counterbalance, because apparently that helps like sort of level you out. Yeah. So again, I went and had the Merino coil fitted and started taking the estrogen tablets. But I mean, my mental and emotional health has not been great throughout this whole period. You know, it's up and down a lot, like everybody's when the periods come in. but it did substantially deteriorate this year, definitely. And I think for myself personally, a lot of that was to do with Merino coil, and I think I'm slightly sensitive to progesterone, but a lot of all of this is trial and error, and a lot of it is, you know, myself researching things. So yeah, so I just started to get really down, just erratic, you know, it's like, you know, like when you're pregnant and you just cry because then there's 3 satsumas and not 2. You know what I mean? What's going on with me? Yeah, so I just really tried to stick with it, but I did get very low at one point this year, like to the point where I had to go off work, sick. I had it in, yeah, I had it, this is another one, there's so many. So yeah, so the one that consultant advised me to have again, so I went and had that in, and that's when I just started to feel really bad mentally and emotionally. My physical symptoms were still the same. I still had really bad fatigue, joint pain. It's unbelievable. I mean, some days I think, God, I feel like an old lady. Everything hurts. I have to come downstairs and take painkillers, and you know, that's not normal, is it? To be having to take a painkiller every day, days on end. So yeah, so I was having those. I just didn't feel that the coil suited me. I say, like, my mental and emotional health nosedived. I tried to get hold of my consultant to say, I don't think this is for me, can you advise me? Because I knew if I went back to my GP, they won't do anything. Now I've got a consultant without their say-so, so I was literally going around in circles. So I was going back to GP saying, oh, I don't think this is working for me, what about this? They're like, oh, hold on, we'll have to wait and speak to your consultant. And then if that they did actually speak to them and they got back to them, then it'd come back to me. But that was like months at a time. Like, we're talking 3 months for, you know, to go around in that little circle to try something else. So I got that desperate this year. You might want to know. So I've removed my coil myself at home. I was desperate, literally. I just thought, if I don't do something, and you know your own body, don't you? You just know. Even though I was looking to them for guidance, I just thought I'd rather try and take this out and see how I go, than feel the way I feel at that moment in time. I just felt awful. I couldn't get an appointment to have it removed because of COVID. So yeah, so I literally made the decision to.
And has it been
YouTube?
Yeah.
Google. Honestly, within a week, I felt better. Really? Emotionally and mentally, I felt better. Still had my physical symptoms, but definitely for me, I'm not like putting anyone off. I know it's fantastic for some women. I've got friends who have it and rave about it, but just personally for me, it just didn't work. Found some old ones in the cupboard from before, because I was thinking, right, can't go on anything. And thankfully, the ones I felt the best on, the ones I told you I changed the patch every 2 weeks, found some, I thought, were great. So put those back on, went back to the GP and said, this is what I've done, can I just remain on this level, this HRT, this particular one? And they said, yeah, that's fine. And I still had an appointment with my consultant that I was due to have, I think that was in the July of this year. That I couldn't go in because of COVID, so we had to have it over the phone again. But I was really disappointed actually in that, because she was very dismissive of what I was saying to her. I timed my phone call with her and it actually was 7 minutes long, and she spoke for 5 minutes out of that whole conversation. She asked me how my call was going, I explained the situation, that I'd taken it out, how it made me feel, and she literally dismissed everything I said. She said she didn't feel that the coil was the reason that my mental and emotional health had deteriorated. She'd written a paper on it. So I tried to argue, well, everybody's different, and I know myself, and I feel better without it, much better. I'd say 60% better without having it in, just for a week later. So obviously, you know, it just wasn't for me. But yeah, she was quite dismissive. And and she said that if I want to continue on the HRT that I'd found and that the GP was prescribing me, and to stay on that, and dismiss me from the service.
Oh wow.
So back to square one,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
It's crazy.
To be honest, no. I thought it would benefit me, if anything, you know, from reading on CBD. I have.
Yeah.
I tried the drops under the tongue. I've tried the, you know, some as like a sleep aid. I felt that they did reduce my anxiety. I did feel that I felt more calm and sort of like on a level, but they didn't help with my sleeping at all.
Okay.
But that's been horrendous for years. They didn't help with any of that. But like I say, you know, since going through Peri Menopause, I've looked after myself more because you know, because something's wrong, I don't know what it is, so I've made the effort, the conscious effort to look after myself better now than I ever did, but I felt worse. the irony, you know, everything. So yeah, like I say, so I was taking supplements. I mean, 20s don't take supplements, you 20s do, or even 30s maybe, but yeah, so I started taking all my supplements, like really looking after myself, my skin, drinking more water, going to the gym. I tried to like do, you know, all these things and make myself a priority more so, because I knew I was struggling. So like when I heard about this, I thought, yeah, I'm up for it.
Give it a go.
Yeah, definitely. Because I was already taking numerous supplements, like I say, and I literally, I was at the stage where I'd try anything.
Yeah.
I would try anything to just feel like my old self and to feel better.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would. I think it took a good 2 weeks for me. I took it in the morning, because that's when I just take my, you know, my daily medication. I always have, that's my routine. So I took it every morning with everything else, and I just felt I had more energy, and that's a biggie for me because I am honestly always tired. So I felt that. Well, it's not that I felt I'm more energetic. I can remember sitting actually at the sink and thinking, oh, you know, like, I feel all right. Because it's that few and far between when I do that it was like really refreshing. Yeah, it definitely helped with my joint pain. That definitely reduced. I wasn't taking half as many painkillers as I was before. I felt alert, brighter, more focused, and I didn't feel as emotional. I mean, I'm not nowhere near as emotional as I was before, but I still have a good cry, like once a week, easy. But yeah, but I felt like I remember recalling like, oh, I haven't cried for, you know, it's just one of those, like, oh, I haven't cried, and I just like, I had a bit of a spring in my step, and I definitely, you know, like, well, this was the only thing different that I was doing. And I love the fact as well that everything is in the capsule, you know, everything that I was taking like 8, you know, different supplements every single morning. Everything was in one, so it was just so convenient. I didn't have to, you know, overthink anything or remind myself. It was just there with everything else. But, no. Absolutely. No. I mean, I felt more alert from taking these, so yeah, absolutely. Oh, and my anxiety as well. Yeah, really yeah, it helped. Yeah, definitely. It has. This is the like this supplement is, for me personally, one of the best ones that I've taken so far, and that is the truth. Yeah, it is. Which I've been making.
Oh, I'm glad it's helping.
No, I mean, if anyone's in the same situation as me, they will totally relate to this, and you are at your wit's end. And I know, like, my journey's not over yet. I'm not in menopause. I still have very irregular periods now. So, like I say, so historically how it started, where it was constant, now they're just sporadic, erratic. So I could have 2 a year. I could, you know, I could have 1, you know, 3 in consecutive months. It just, I never know, and I hate that as well. Just never knowing, because you know, you just catch it off guard, don't it, all the time. So it is a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, like, my journey's nowhere near over. So anything that can help me feel like myself again. I am,
Yeah,
yeah. I continue with my HRT. I still feel for myself that it needs tweaking. I mean, it's like it's a minefield out there. You know, when you start looking into it, I'm on Menopause Matters forum. I have been for years. I love it, and it's really useful. But yeah, there's just so much. You know, so many different HRTs, and things that are more compatible with you, and dosages and gels and creams and pessary. There's so, like, it is overwhelming. And you go to your GP, don't you, for some guidance, and then to your consultant, which didn't work out for me. I think for me personally, I'm going to go private. I think that's the way I'm going to go. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, to get myself back on track and